Hey, everybody. Now, whether you're a high school student, the parent of a high school student, or just an engaged community member, you can be confident that the contents of this presentation will both be interesting to you and extremely relevant. The topic of this presentation is how to apply to college and afford it. And I do realize that's a very ambitious and quite a broad topic. So I won't be able to get into all the nuance of applying to college and financial aid, but I'll touch on some of the highlights, and then at the end of the presentation, reference some of the free resources that parents and students across the country can use for additional help in applying to college and financial aid. Huge amounts of time, energy, and money go into applying to college and financial aid. This is no secret to anyone. College is an important thing. It's not the right path for anyone, and of course, the college a student chooses to apply to is a very personalized thing as well. But it's no secret that the path that students take after college has a huge impact on the rest of their life. Many students meet their spouses in college. It can affect their future career, their future income, make some of the best friends, lifelong friends that they might have in their lives. And then alternatively, in the more negative way, college decisions can affect debt, and students can pay off student college debt for decades after they graduate. So there's a huge importance that's placed on applying to college and financial aid, and for good reason, because it's a pivotal moment in students' lives in terms of the direction that their life might take. Now, my name is Cole Scanlon. I'm the co-founder and co-director of Fair Opportunity Projects. You see our logo right there. We're a college access nonprofit helping students apply to college and financial aid. And as the name suggests, I mean, we really did start out more as a project than as a nonprofit. Fair Opportunity Project is something I started with my buddy Luke when we were both undergrads at Harvard, as we were helping students from our community apply to college and financial aid. One thing that really got us quite frustrated is how really unfair and unequal access to college college application and financial aid resources are for students. Some students who can afford it get personalized help writing their essays and creating their college lists and applying to scholarships, and oftentimes that's in the form of either a college consultant or by virtue of the high school that they go to, just very in-depth and personalized help that they might receive from their high school guidance counselor. And on the flip side, especially for students who are low income or first generation, that might not be the case. Many students, including myself, went to high schools where there were hundreds of students per counselor. And as a result, if you don't have the luck of, in my case, being the son of a high school teacher and the grandson of a high school counselor, I had that additional support applying to college and financial aid. If you don't have that, you're kind of left on your own. You're left to Googling for help, but quickly that can become both confusing and also sometimes misleading, because some of the information out there isn't the most accurate. So the purpose of this presentation today is to touch on some of those key misconceptions that lead students and parents astray, and some advice on applying to college and financial aid. So with that, just jumping into it. Now, this is a statistic that surprised me when I first heard it. The average high school student to counselor ratio in US public schools is 430 to 1. And what does that mean? That means that if you go to one of these high schools where there's tons of students per very few counselors, it means that you're not getting the in-depth and personalized support that you might otherwise need and want. It also means for the counselors that they are just inundated and overwhelmed in many cases with students, wanting to provide that personalized help, but not having the time to do so. Now, for the students that can afford it, they can hire these private college consultants that are it's a big industry. It's a really common thing. But they can be extremely expensive. Talk thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for individualized help, creating a college list, preparing for standardized tests, and writing aspects of your application like the college essay. For the students that can't afford it, what that means is they either lack information or have misinformation about how to apply to college and financial aid. And as I discussed earlier, these decisions that students make can have a huge impact on their lives, can affect the amount of debt they go into, can affect the college they decide to attend, can affect the major that they decide on, and can affect whether they decide to go to college at all. Just to highlight a couple of these misconceptions that are really common for some of the students that I've worked with. First is around the sticker price of college. I remember being a sophomore in high school. I grew up in Miami-Dade County in Florida. And I remember, starting, let's say, sophomore year of high school, looking at some colleges online. And I remember just being shocked that some of these colleges per year cost $60,000, $70,000. I just couldn't, fathom that folks were spending that kind of money per year. And I learned later that yes, some students do pay that sort of money per year, but a vast majority don't. A vast majority of students receive some federal aid, some private aid, some scholarships, just a mix of support that results in them not paying that full sticker price. So that's something that's important for students and parents to know, is that when you see those really big figures, don't get scared immediately, because you need to adjust those figures based on your financial aid status, and other factors that we'll go into a bit later on. On the topic of financial aid, another misconception that many folks have is that private schools are always more expensive than public schools, or vice versa. And again, there's nuance there, and that nuance is important, because if a student is only applying to public schools because they think that it's going to be cheaper than private schools, then they're not making the best decisions for themselves. They need to look into the nuance there, look into how much different colleges will cost based on their individual situation, their individual family financial situation, and only then can you start, accurately weighing whether one college is going to be more or less expensive than another. And then a third misconception that's quite common is this belief that standardized tests can't be studied for. My co-founder Luke, for a while during high school, thought that standardized tests were kind of like IQ tests, that you just take them and that's what you get, and that's that. But the truth is, students can improve their scores drastically by studying for these tests. And in fact, there's even a statistic out there that just by taking it a second time, students on average increase their score by about 10%, because perhaps they have less jitters, or sort of less nervous, maybe know a bit more of what to expect. So just by taking it a second time, students are expected to get higher scores. And all of this together, in terms of these misconceptions and this inequity of access, mean that some students take on too much debt, some don't graduate because maybe they decide to go to their quote unquote dream school, but it costs their family way too much, and halfway through they have to drop out. Or third, they don't go at all. And to be upfront here, I'm a full believer that college isn't the optimal path for everyone. There's so many different paths. I'm currently serving in the military as an officer, and many of the folks that I work with, never went to college, and are and it seems to be, and in their own judgment, was the better decision for them. But for the folks that do want to go to college and it is the right thing for them, we just want to make sure that the reason they're not going is because it makes sense for them. We don't want the reason that they're not going because they think it's more expensive than it actually is. Couple interesting stats. So one stat here is when you look at the most competitive to less competitive colleges, you could see the sticker price. So that's in the red here. The sticker price of the most competitive colleges, excuse me, is massive. And you see for less competitive, it goes a bit less. But the cost to families that are in the bottom 20th percentile in terms of being low income is less. So this just goes to that point that the cost of college is a bit personalized, right? So let's say a student is from a low income family, bottom 20th percentile, and they think that because the sticker price of some really competitive really competitive college is so much that they can't afford it. The reality is that if they were to get into that college, it would cost them less there than it would at a less competitive college. And the same sort of nuance applies to private versus public. Now, another thing that's important to note is that students, based on misconceptions, sometimes apply and don't apply to elite colleges. And one big takeaway here is that, for instance, in urban areas, many high-income students, applied to some of these elite colleges. But then when you look at, let's say, like some rural areas that might or might not be near cities, that they don't apply to as many elite colleges. And with that, paired with the previous graph, just speaks to how really like perceptions and beliefs play a big role here. The belief that a student might have that the sticker price of college is what they're actually paying, or the belief of a student that college isn't for them. These beliefs affect students' decisions, and these decisions affect the outcomes of students way years later, once students are graduated from college and living their lives. So just to touch a little bit on what Fair Opportunity Project does, to address some of these issues, what we try and do is compile all of the free resources that are out there to support students and parents in applying to college and financial aid. It started as a guide. So imagine we put together a Google Doc that many people were collaborated on, including admissions counselors, educational consultants, hundreds of students, high school counselors, a mix of folks working on this guide that then we'd send out for free to different high schools to try and reduce the amount of time that counselors have to take to pull together those resources themselves, provide a resource that counselors can give out to their students that have accurate information, and a bunch of free resources linked in there, so then counselors can spend more time focused on the high impact stuff, the personalized advising and mentorship and things like that. Now, since we launched that guide, we've launched a few other things, including a mentorship program where students can get paired with a free mentor from their geographical area, most often office hours, where students can just sign on and ask a question like they were to go to office hours with their high school counselor. And then a new initiative that we're really excited about is essay reviews. So a big sticking point and a big struggle point for students is college essays. One misconception students have is that the college essay is meant to be written like an English literature essay or an SAT essay that's intro, topic sentence 1, topic sentence 2, and just rigid. But at the end of the day, the purpose of a college essay is much broader than that. The purpose of college essay is to, yes, show colleges that you can write well, but also, and more importantly, show them a little bit about yourself. Tell them about your character. Show them what you're like as a person and what's important to you. So what we have here is a way for students to just submit their essay, and then again for free to just get some of that feedback that should be provided in the current educational system already, but because of the lack of resources is not provided. So we're trying to make up for some of that gap. So as I said, there's some self-guided things that we provide, like our guide, but then we also have some mentorship and a bunch of resources that, again, are all 100% free. So this is just a look in terms of how our guide looks. It started out much shorter, but it just keeps growing. And one thing that I love that's in there is sample college essays. So essays that folks on our team submitted to some really good colleges and got in, and they can be used as a reference for students. And then, of course, we have social media too, that distribute some of these resources as well. We have an online module course called Fair Opportunity X that we launched in partnership with Harvard's Lab Exchange, touching on how to apply to college and pay for it. And then because of the pandemic, where many students got even less support than they typically get in a traditional educational setting, we ramped up. So it was during COVID-19, with a lot of schools being locked down, that we launched our college essay reviews. And that was also when we ramped up our mentorship program. So you see Office essay reviews, and that is what sort of our core mission, empowering students to access and afford college. But the key thing here is free and accessible. Like we aren't here to make money. This is all about just making sure students get the support that they need. So we have mentors all over, and have a pretty significant reach at this point. We've served a ton of folks, a ton of students, and have done this thanks to our team of students. This is just our core team, but we have Sam, Spencer, Miranda, and then of course I'm the one presenting here, and then we have Carol, and then Luke. So spread out across the country, but I think that's one of the things that makes us special. And then we have advisors, from KIPP Academy and New York City Department of Education to Cornerstone Charter School and City Year. And then we have a bunch of partners and collaborators. So that was on some of our resources. And then the final thing that I want to talk a little bit about is some of the specific pieces of advice that I'd give students and parents in applying to college and financial aid. So number one, I would say start early. The earlier folks start this process in terms of understanding what is in a college application, the earlier students can start preparing for it. It wasn't for me until probably early senior year that I actually understood, what does a college application look like? Like, what are the sorts of things that they ask for that then go into the sorts of things that colleges evaluate students on? So as early as possible, I think it's important for students to understand what is in a college application. And that's something that we have in our guide, and that's something that folks can find online by themselves. So point of advice number one is start early. Point of advice number two is information is not enough. Students can spend hours and hours, looking on Google for information, and reading our resources for free information, but no amount of information can replace the sort of personalized support that an involved parent can offer, that an involved teacher or counselor or mentor can offer. So I think, to the parents, my advice would be to be engaged, and just make sure, and students, be active in finding folks that can mentor you and advise you on this process, because it's hard to go at it alone, and information is not enough, because you need those additional set of eyes to review your essay, and you also just need that feedback from someone who can start questioning you on, hey, why are you applying to this college? Like, what do you like about it? Do you like that it's in an urban area? Do you like that it's, as a big sports team? Like, what is it? And it's that conversation that in many cases causes us to learn more about ourselves and to start reflecting on the decisions that we make. So number two would be information is not enough. Number three would be the college essay is much more than an English essay. I alluded to that a bit already, but I just want to emphasize this point that the college essay is a moment, is an opportunity for you to show colleges who you are and what you care about. To expound on that a little bit more, I'll just touch on a couple errors that some students that we work with make. One is being too descriptive. And what do I mean by that? I mean, writing an essay that is beautifully written with adjectives and this elegant language, and it's a beautiful piece of writing. But when you look at each sentence does not tell the reader enough about that student, does not tell enough about who that student is and what that student cares about. So avoid that trap and make sure that each sentence is adding something, and not just adding words on the page, but is adding something in terms of telling the college and showing the college who you are and what you care about. Second piece of advice on the college essay specifically is show, don't tell. If you write an essay and say, oh, I'm a very caring person, or I'm a very moral person, or I am a hard worker, that doesn't mean much to anyone. It doesn't mean much to the essay reviewers because it doesn't have enough support behind it. Show, don't tell means if you want to show, if you want to communicate that you are someone who is a very good friend, the best way to show that is through a story. The best way to show that is through examples. So to the extent possible, avoid being explicit about telling things about yourself, and instead show it through a story or through examples. So number three, college essay, awesome opportunity to show colleges a little bit about yourself. Number four, financial aid is personalized. Now, what do I mean by this? The amount that you'll pay for different colleges is dependent on your individual financial situation. Now, there's a tool that we reference in our guide that has a paid model, but also a free model. We only recommend the free model. And there are other tools like it where you input your financial characteristics. So your parents' income, your GPA, and SAT, which is not financial, but it's important here, and some other figures. And then what it will do is it will estimate the cost of different colleges for you. For instance, there's a thing called the estimated family contribution, where you fill in some of these financial characteristics of your family, and it estimates how much you will have to pay per year for colleges that meet full financial need. And that there's a list of colleges online of colleges that commit to doing just that. So big takeaway here is don't count any college out just because it has a big sticker price on it. But also don't get too allured by a college that has a really small sticker price. Make sure that you use some of these tools like Edmit, like the estimated family contribution calculator, to get a decent estimate for how much different colleges are going to cost you, and what that financial cost will look like. Because again, there's nuance, and the way that your aid might be covered, it might include the student working 10 hours a week, during the term. It might include some low interest loans, which is something obviously no one wants. But it might also include merit aid based on your GPA and your SAT score. So takeaway number four, financial aid is personalized. And then takeaway number five, and this is the final one, is there's help out there. Whether you use Fair Opportunity Project resources or not, a big thing that I've learned over the past 5 years being in this space is there are so many cool, free, just awesome resources out there. The hardest part is finding them. One tool that I love that I was made aware of a couple of years ago is a tool called Going Merry. It's like a common app for scholarships where you put in a bunch of info and you can apply to multiple scholarships at once. Just like for the Common App, you can apply to multiple colleges at once, which saves you a ton of time and effort. That is one example, but there are dozens, if not hundreds, of examples of free tools and resources out there that make applying to college and applying to financial aid easier. So my advice, number 5, is get that help, get that free help. Spend some time looking around for some of the free tools and resources out there that make applying to college and financial aid a little bit easier, make finding a mentor easier, getting essay reviews easier, applying to scholarships easier. Because at the end of the day, getting back to the earlier point I made, college is an awesome opportunity to make lifelong friends, potentially a spouse, but to learn more about yourself and to explore your interests, academic, professional, live in a new place for a bit, and just in general. I mean, many people have their fondest memories in college, and the thing that keeps me driven to work on college access is the reality that students across this country don't get that fair shot, don't get that fair opportunity to apply to college and financial aid with the tools and resources truly that they deserve. And that's what we're trying to do here. So my final note here is if you need any of that help from us, please check out our website and email us. One thing that we offer now is our guide, which can be totally freely downloaded on our website, but we also have it on Amazon if you want a physical copy. My email is cole@fairopportunityproject.org in case you would like to email me personally. But I just want to say thank you for participating in this event, and I hope to work with some of you in the future. And best of luck applying to college and financial aid.